Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City Council regular meeting this Monday evening, October 21st. I now call the regular session to order. I invite everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, could you please call the roll?
With pleasure, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hedges.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Lorraine.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Newsom.
Here.
And Mayor Diaz-Nash.
Here. We are excited to be here in person with options for those who choose not to be in person to participate virtually. There are several ways to participate. For those attending in person, please complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to our city clerk. If participating remotely, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, please press *6 to unmute the phone. These options for public comment will remain available until I close the public comment period for each specific item. Now, we are moving on to our ceremonial items, which are most exciting this evening. The first one is Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week Proclamation, and Zach Dahl, our Community Development Director, will be part of the presentation. But first, I would like to come on up. First, I would like to read the proclamation. And before I start, I want everyone to understand there was a note on my proclamation that said CEO Proclamation. That's Code Enforcement Officer. It's also CEO.
Shall we invite all our officers up?
Absolutely.
Or the whole code enforcement team
Yes.
to join Zach?
These are the ladies and gentlemen who make this all happen. And Zach, you are very lucky to be working with them.
Absolutely.
All right. So the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas code enforcement officers are dedicated and highly qualified individual professionals who provide for the safety and welfare of all residents in the city of San Mateo by enforcing building, zoning, property maintenance, and noise regulations. And whereas code enforcement officers promote neighborhood quality of life and preserve property values, the rights of all San Mateo residents to live in safe, sanitary, and healthy conditions by diligently enforcing the city's tenant relocation ordinance. And whereas code enforcement officers provide excellent customer service, building relationship with San Mateo residents, property owners, and business operators. And whereas code enforcement officers handle approximately 1,200 complaints and 500 cases per year, and you're still standing, always aiming to achieve compliance amicably and only occasionally resorting to elevated enforcement and citations. And whereas code enforcement officers adhere to the requirements of the municipal code and equitable code enforcement practices, fully investigating all complaints and issues while working respectfully with potential violators to achieve positive outcomes. And now, therefore, I, Lisa Diaz-Nash, City Mayor of the City of San Mateo, on behalf of all my colleagues on City Council and San Mateo residents, do hereby so appreciate your accomplishments and the dedication of our code enforcement officers that we recognize the week of October 21st, 2024 through October 25th, 2024 as Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week. Thank you all deeply. I turned it over to you.
Great. Great. Well, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. It's really a pleasure to get a chance to recognize our code enforcement team here. And I just wanted to say a few more words on top of everything that was noted in the proclamation. Here in San Mateo, we just have an excellent team of dedicated, highly qualified, and highly trained code enforcement officer professionals who work hard every day, and sometimes on nights and weekends, to ensure that we have a high quality of life in our neighborhoods, safe and sanitary living conditions, and that we provide equitable code enforcement for all residents here in the city. And beyond just code enforcement, our team really works hard to communicate with all parties involved when we have a case to ensure positive outcomes and make sure we're providing excellent customer service. And really, penalties and citations, they're there if we need them, but they're really a last resort. Also, collaboration is a big part of our approach, whether it is with a city department outside of community development or outside agencies such as San Mateo Consolidated Fire, Vector Control, and County Health. We are always working to address issues and complaints that come up, even when they go beyond code enforcement's official purview. We're here to help solve problems and resolve issues to support that high quality of life that residents here in San Mateo look for and expect. And more than anything else, this is a group of problem solvers right here. They work diligently with complainants, residents, and property owners to address really challenging and complex issues, sometimes that take a long time to fully resolve because of the nature of them and the people involved. But they are there and they do it with respect and compassion. And so, all in all, this is really a team that embodies the San Mateo way, day in and day out with the work they put in. And so I do really want to applaud them for the work, and it's not an easy job. And so I really appreciate the fact that they're here, they've got a smile on their face, and they're really here to support the community. So I do want to real quick and introduce our team, starting with our code enforcement manager, Eugene Alper, senior code enforcement officer, Kristen Ayub, code enforcement officer, John Freitas, and Code Enforcement Officer Benjamin Lai. We also have a fourth position that is vacant, but we've identified an individual and we'll hopefully be onboarding them by mid-November. So we'll have our full code enforcement team ready to serve. So thank you again for the recognition, and it's a pleasure to get up here and recognize this great team we have here.
Excellent. And if we could say, okay, we're just here to be tall. That's what you're here. Code enforcement.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So now we're moving on to our second ceremonial item, Domestic Violence Awareness Month Proclamation. And I believe that Melissa Gibbs, the Senior Manager of Legal Services for Cora, is here. Welcome, welcome, Melissa. And if I could just read the proclamation to you first, that would be wonderful. Whereas 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. And whereas on a typical day, there are more than 20,000 phone calls placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide. And whereas the city of San Mateo stands to support the victims of domestic violence in our city, our country, and around the world. And whereas the city of San Mateo recognizes and thanks the first responders, service providers, and community members who work to make sure that every American can live in safety with dignity and respect. And whereas every survivor should know they are not alone and they deserve better. If you or someone you know needs help today, immediate and confidential support is available 24/7, and the citizens of San Mateo are encouraged to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. Once again, that's 1-800-799-7233, or visit thehotline.org. And whereas the City of San Mateo residents should further educate themselves on resources and services that may be available to better protect themselves and others against domestic violence. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Diaz-Nash, Mayor of the City of San Mateo, on behalf of all my fellow council members, do hereby recognize the month of October to be Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. And we would be grateful if you would say a few words on behalf of Cora.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members. It is an honor as representative of Cora, as well as a City of San Mateo resident, to receive this proclamation recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. These proclamations are so critical because domestic violence is often a crime that is committed behind closed doors. And when we bring light to domestic violence, people are encouraged not only to share their stories, but to seek support. Cora is the only agency in San Mateo County that is solely dedicated to supporting survivors of intimate partner violence. To provide an overview of our services for those who are present here today, community members, as well as those participating via Zoom, we have a crisis hotline that is answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days per year. Staff assists with providing referrals, domestic violence education, safety planning where necessary, emergency hoteling, and crisis intervention services. We have 2 safe houses in San Mateo County where folks can go and receive confidential housing and receive supportive services to really help them regroup and figure out what their next steps forward are going to be. We provide over $1 million per year in state and county HUD services for rental assistance, so folks can maintain long-term safe housing away from their abusive partner. We offer legal advocacy and representation to folks who are going through the family court process. We have mental health services where we provide individual and group counseling services to adults and children, and we provide family-centered therapeutic services. We also have a range of community education and prevention programs for families, youth, and community members to learn about domestic violence. Our services are free and confidential, as Mayor Diaz-Nash mentioned. If you or somebody you know is experiencing domestic violence, certainly the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available, but Cora's hotline is available too. And that telephone number is 1-800-300-1080. Again, that's 1-800-300-1080. Thank you for recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We greatly appreciate your support and partnership.
And we greatly appreciate everything Cora does for everyone in the county.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to our consent calendar. City Clerk, could you please read the consent calendar?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item may be removed and considered separately. Item number 3, City Council meeting minutes, approval. Item number 4, legal advertising services, bid rejection. Item number 5, Park and Recreation Commission Youth Commissioner reappointment. Item number 6, solid waste rate setting consultant agreement. Item number 7, citywide facilities condition assessments amendment. Item number 8, Office of Traffic Safety appropriation and grant spending plan. Item number 9, Community Wellness and Crisis Response Team Medical Health Partnership Services Agreement. Item number 10, Congregate Nutrition Planet Program Interagency Agreement. Item number 11, Lifeline Grant Cycle 7 Interagency Memorandum of Understanding. Item number 12, Wastewater Treatment Plant On-Call Consulting Services Amendment. Item number 13, Park and Recreation Department Field Mowers Purchase Contract. Item number 14, Personal Computer Replacements Purchase. Item number 15, Clean Water Program Program Management Amendment. Item number 16, Unmanned Aerial System Program Amendment. Item number 17, Payment of Capital Cost of Clean Water Program Projects Interim Agreement. And item number 18, Child Care Facilities Fund Loan for Improvements for 847 and 849 North San Mateo Drive Agreement. And finally, item number 19, Peninsula Clean Energy Solar and Storage on Public Buildings Program Power Purchase Agreement.
Is there any member of the council who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Mayor Nash, I don't want to pull, but I want to.
You have to put your,
I don't want to pull, but I want to discuss one after we vote.
okay, thank you.
That would be item number 11.
All right. Anyone want to pull something?
To echo what Council. Before we vote, I'd like to address 13, but don't want to pull it.
Okay, I think, shall we vote first and then we can comment?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on any consent calendar item? Now would be the time to make your comment. This is for consent calendar items only.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have received 2 requests to speak in council chambers. I'm seeing some hands raised in the virtual environment. Maria and Deborah, just to confirm, this is for consent calendar items only, so these are items on the consent calendar of the agenda. If you do not wish to speak on these items, please lower your hand for the time being. Thank you. So, Madam Mayor, that's 2 requests to speak, both in chambers, so per council rules and procedures, that'll be 3 minutes per speaker. Mm-hmm. So our 2 speakers will be Michael Tejada, and final speaker is Andy Landels. Thank you. So, like to come on up?
Good evening, Mayor Diaz-Nash, Deputy Mayor Newsom, and council members. My name is Michael Tejada, and I'm the co-owner and administrator for Mi Second Casa, a large in-home family daycare here in San Mateo. My mom, Graciela Tejada, who's over there, first opened Mi Second Casa in 2007, and she provided the framework for our mission today to help young children reach their full potential through holistic development in an inclusive Spanish immersion program. We are proud to serve a community we've called home for nearly 30 years. We are thrilled at the opportunity to open a child care center here in San Mateo with the city's help utilizing the Child Care Facilities Fund. This initiative will be a significant benefit for both the city and our families. As you may know, there's a critical need for child care in San Mateo, particularly for infants, with an estimated shortfall of 700 infant spaces in 2022. Our plan is to offer 60 child care spaces, including 30 for infants and toddlers, with a goal to open by summer 2025. A child care center like ours will not only provide essential services for working parents, but also contribute to the local economy and foster the development of our youngest community members. We've seen firsthand how access to quality child care allows parents to pursue their careers and invest in their family's future. I would like to thank Mayor Diaz-Nash, Deputy Mayor Newsom, and the council members for the support in this project. I would also like to express my gratitude to each city department and division that has supported us in making this project viable, including Public Works, Community Development, Planning, Building, Fire, and Housing. Thank you again, and we can't wait to get to work.
Thank you very much. And it does take a village.
Thank you. And our next speaker will be Andy. And we did get one virtual commenter. So Deborah, you raised your hand again. So Deborah will be our last speaker.
Hi, I am Andy Landels. I'm a parent at Mi Second Casa, so we're kind of tacking on to the same number, 18 tonight. I just want to talk about what an amazing facility Mi Second Casa is, both from an affordable childcare option that they've been, but also the amazing, loving environment that they've created for our two kids. We're excited to see what they would possibly be doing as they grow to the next facility. They are always there for our kids. They're always flexible with the schedules that we need. The second bilingual education that our kids are getting is showing in huge strides for our 4-year-old and our almost 2-year-old. So we're really excited to see what they would potentially do. So I just wanted to add in what an amazing gem they are in our community, and how excited we are to see what they can do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And as was announced, our last speaker on the consent calendar will be Deborah. Deborah, please unmute your mic.
I'm sorry, I think I'm waiting for the public comments.
Oh, no worries.
Okay, I apologize,
Thank you.
I haven't done this before.
Mayor Nash, I have a question.
Okay. Are we finished with public comment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that concludes public comment
Okay.
on the consent calendar.
Great, thank you. Then I'll bring it back, and I think Councilmember Hedges had some comments.
Question on 18, and I'll speak on 11 if I can. So I wanted to ask the city manager, my memory is that we have a fund that gets set aside for large construction, when we're doing construction, that goes into a fund for daycare, right?
That is correct. We have a child care impact fee.
And this is the money coming from this child care impact fee?
That is correct, and this is the largest award in the city's history.
Thank you. That's what I thought, a good use of the money.
Great, and you wanted to comment on 18?
So I guess I could add that probably development would help us with this so that we'd get more funds for more childcare.
That does help the city's coffers in paying, generating this revenue that then we can dish out to the community for these needs.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, through the mayor. I wanted to thank everyone involved in item 13. A few months ago, we pulled item 13 because we had not done their due diligence on seeing if we could have electric lawnmowers. And the team spent a ton of effort finding that we could do one of these as electric and the other is going to be biodiesel. But both are cleaner alternatives to what we originally were looking at. So I wanted to give a shout out to Daniel Heffelfinger, Fleet Services Supervisor, Stephen Wu, Acting Facilities and Fleet Service Manager, Derek DeQuigian, the Deputy Public Works Director, apologize if I'm butchering his name, Matt Fabry and Joanne Magrini and their entire teams, and looking forward to having electric and biodiesel lawnmowers. And great work, and hopefully we can continue this trend. Thank you.
excellent. And then Councilmember Hedges, you had something else you wanted to comment?
Yes, I'd like to say something about number 11, the Lifeline grant. Money comes in from the federal government on a 2-year cycle for Lifeline. This is money for transportation or other issues that affect people that are either disabled or elderly. And the Lifeline grant allows our seniors, 60 or older, to use a taxi company to go to for their dinner, for their doctor's appointment, and their cost is only $5. The grant picks up the rest of it. It's, I think, pretty well used. I just want to make anybody in the audience or listening tonight to know that if they have seniors in their family or if they themselves are a senior, to take advantage of this. You can go to the borderline of Millbrae North and all the way to the Veterans Hospital in Palo Alto or Stanford on this Lifeline program. And for some of our people who are shut in or in dense neighborhoods like North Central who have a hard time finding a parking place if they want to go out to dinner at night, they can use this to go to dinner and come back so that they won't be impacted and left in their homes. So I appreciate this program, and I've been watching it for a number of years, and it's money well spent. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we're done with questions, so is there someone who can make a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
City Clerk, if you could call the roll.
With pleasure, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Hedges.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Newsom.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
Councilmember Lorraine.
Yes.
And Mayor Diaz-Nash.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you very much. Now we're moving on to general public comment. Members of the public wishing to comment on any item not appearing on this agenda may address the City Council at this time. State law prevents council from taking any action on any matter not on the agenda. Your comments may be referred to staff for follow-up. This public comment section is generally limited to 15 minutes. However, that is subject to council's discretion and can be extended if council so wishes. If needed, an opportunity for additional public comment may also be provided later in the agenda. City Clerk, could you please tally the total number of requests to speak on general public comment?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. In chambers, I have a total of 5 requests to speak. Right now, I'm seeing 3 requests to speak in Zoom. We'll give you just a couple more moments to raise your hand if you wish to speak on general public comment. We will be calling the last speaker. So please raise your hand now if you'd like to speak on general public comment. So that's a total of 8 requests to speak, Madam Mayor. So that would be 3 minutes per speaker.
Thank you.
And our final speaker in the virtual environment will be Deborah. So we will take in-house requests to speak first. When I call your name, if you could please line up to my right here, that would be greatly appreciated. Our first speaker will be Sean Farenbrook, followed by Chris Caragoli and Bob Cohen.
Madam Mayor and City Council members, thank you. My name is Sean Farenbrook. I emailed all of you yesterday, and the city manager and the city attorney. This is regarding the impact of historical registries on home insurance. I do not live in a house that is presently in a nominated neighborhood or it's up for registry. However, in a previous state, I own some property that was affected by this, so I'm aware of some of the issues that can happen on this, and that's why I'm kind of passionate about this. I checked with my insurance company to see if there would be any impact on my home if it was hypothetically put on a registry. And I was expecting there might be a 10% increase, 20% increase, and I was shocked to find that actually they would not renew the policy. And so with this, I contacted some friends. I had them check out their policies, and I'm with Nationwide. One of my other friends is with AAA, another one's with Hippo, and another one was with, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they got the same response. Now, we did check with some others, and we found out that it wasn't all that are canceling yet. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're all aware of the craziness that's going on with insurance in the state right now, and that's due to a whole bunch of reasons. What's going on with this historic stuff is not necessarily related to that. So even if the state, gets their act together with historical stuff, or sorry, with the normal stuff, and brings the insurance companies back and stops the exodus, being on a registry could still affect you. I mean, to the point where it's kind of bordering on contractual interference. So this is a real serious issue, and you might be able to correct your insurance issues if you remove trees or a fire hazard or fix a roof. But if you're on a registry, this is a problem because these are nationwide businesses, and they're not going to dig into the sophistry of a city's policies. They're just going to hear the word registry. That's it. They're done. You're off, and you have very little recourse. And just because your neighbor has one policy doesn't mean you're going to get from the same company. They're not going to do it. So just be careful before you launch into this $500,000 study. As you're creating a historical process, a local process, don't lose the forest for the trees. You might be putting the people you wish to honor, you might be putting these houses in danger. So just be very careful. And my ask is that whatever the procedure is, to have the city staff go off and try to find 20 or 30 companies and survey them. Don't take my word for this. This is data that you need. Please go off and get the proper data that you need to get this and make wise decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next 3 speakers will be Chris Caragoli, followed by Bob Cohen and Patty Willett.
Hi, my name is Chris Cavagioli. My colleagues and I live in San Mateo County. I actually live here in the city, and I know immigrants. And we're volunteers with United Sovereign Americans. United Sovereign Americans, USA, is a nationwide organization. It's nonpartisan, with thousands of active volunteers in over 20 states. Today, we come to you as concerned citizens sharing some alarming information about our state's voter roll database. Analysis was done on the 2022 election researched by highly qualified data teams using only official data provided by California elections officials. And it indicates serious issues with compliance to federal law. So we are here to present to you and the public the results that analysis showing that votes cast, counted, and certified may not all be valid and accurate under the Constitution and under federal law. So we are not here to cast blame or aspersions on any elected official, nor do we advocate for overturning or rerunning any past election. This resolution demands an end to the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections. It includes a summary of our findings and the laws that apply. Your written copy that we gave cites U.S. Supreme Court precedents and federal and constitutional mandates that support the need for such actions. So we urge you to carefully read it and put this resolution on the agenda for the next City Council meeting, where you can vote to join us in support of fair, honest, and valid elections. So this is not controversial. This is just obeying the law, and that's not controversial. So we'd like it if you could put this on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be Bob Cohen, followed by Patty Willett, and final speaker in chambers will be Lisa Smith.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bob Cohen. Resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. Whereas it is a recognized civil right in the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections. Whereas it is the duty of our election officials to guarantee our elections are accurate and free from distortion or manipulation. Whereas our constitutional system of representative government only works when the following four tenets of an election are upheld. 1, the voter rolls must be accurate. National Voter Registration Act, 1993. 2, votes counted must be from eligible voters. U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 2. 3, the number of votes counted must equal the number of voters who voted. 4, there can be no more than 1 in 125,000 ballots in error by the voting system. Help America Vote Act, 2002. Whereas the analysis of the California 2022 general election has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that appear to violate both federal and state laws, including more than 5.8 million, that's million, ineligible or uncertain registration violations found within the California State Voter Roll database. More than 2.7 million, again, million, votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrations. More than 123,000 votes counted than voters who voted. No one knows who cast those ballots. More than 2.7 million apparent voting violations in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election. The maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election was 90. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Patty Willett, followed by Lisa Smith.
Hi, my name is Patty. Certification, as defined by law, is an attestation of accuracy and compliance. The certification of the 2022 election appears to have been fraudulent and illegal, whereas these findings trample legal accuracy requirements of the voting system during a federal election. Whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can be lawfully conducted. Whereas the 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of the guaranteed protection of our natural rights under a government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damage to our families, our way of life, and the fabric of these United States. Therefore, we call upon our representatives to provide relief to the people and the assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 general election that upholds these existing laws and equitable principles of law. 1, proof of citizenship, identity, and eligibility required to register and vote, not anonymous attestation. 2, voter rolls certified accurate and available for public review and challenged 30 days before the start of early voting. 3, hand-marked secure ballots similar to currency, where imaging technology is used for tabulation. The security features must be verifiable in the ballot image. 4, systems, machines, security measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with federal law for fraud prevention regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation. 5, adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witness after being given full and effective observation rights. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker in chambers will be Lisa Smith.
All right, number 6, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations and systems must maintain end-to-end chain of custody from voter to vote count to final canvass, including auditability and witness transfer with paper records. And number 7, a National Institute of Standards and Technology compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2 must be performed. Number 8, if the total of unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held in the state for those candidates affected unless the issues can provably be corrected by a manual hand count and a full review of records. Number 9, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration through certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately recorded. So be it resolved that the San Mateo City Council members stand in support with the concerns and remedies presented here. We implore the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, California Legislature, federal legislatures, law enforcement, federal and state prosecutors, judges, and both California Secretary of State and County Registrars of Voters to cooperate and fulfill these firm requests of the people. And that concludes our resolution. So please visit us at the United Sovereigns Americans website to learn more about the organization and our goal to restore valid elections throughout our country. That's uniteforfreedom.com. One more time, uniteforfreedom.com. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to our virtual environment, and where our first speaker will be Maria. Maria, please unmute your mic.
Good evening, council members. Thank you to the council members that have been looking into the train horn noise in San Mateo and for your involvement. And also to Caltrain for the attempts to change the train horn volume intensity and blasting over the past 2 weeks. We are still hearing the train from our block through closed windows and doors, and it is still not as non-abrasive to the background as it had been prior to August of this year. I had to abandon my bedroom for the past month and a half now and drag my mattress down to a room in the middle of the way, which only has one window instead of surround windows, as my bedroom had, in attempts to muffle the noise from outside. I hope you see it's not unreasonable to voice our concerns, and I surely hope that Caltrain continues to work on the adjustment of the high pitch and of the volume of the new train horns, as most of you hear how it sounds like lengthy foghorns at high pitch all day long. The old train horns were more harmonious and did not reach for blocks and blocks away from any crossing, cutting in on people's last hours of sleep time before work. Adopting the old style horns would definitely alleviate the stress of these new sounds, which are continuous and sleep destructive. People in these neighborhoods work at jobs including nursing and other hospital professions, and due to the destruction of sleep starting at 5:40, 5:24 in the morning and continuing, this is not conducive to our performance at such high stress jobs. I can't even begin to imagine how stressful it may be living in the high density housing directly lining the tracks, as my house is blocks away from the tracks, and the effects are as mentioned. A solution would be to lower the pitch and to lower the volume. I'll also leave you with something as food for thought, which I confront in my line of work, and this is alarm fatigue. It describes how workers, in the case of healthcare or clinicians, become desensitized to safety alerts and as a result ignore to fail or respond appropriately to such warnings. Alarm fatigues occur in many fields, including construction, mining, where vehicles back up. Alarms sound so frequently that they often become senseless background noise. Or in healthcare, where vital information such as vital signs, blood glucose sound alarms so frequently and often for such minor reasons that they lose the urgency and attention-grabbing power which they are intended to have. Almost like crying wolf, such false alarms rob the critical alarms of the importance they deserve. Let's keep alarms, or horns in our case, for their intended purposes, without the effects of alarm fatigue. Most people's goal is safety and the safeguarding from accidents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next speaker will be Deborah. Deborah Rosenfield, please unmute your mic.
Thank you, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak briefly again. My name's Deborah Rosenfeld. Last week, I talked about hearing 740 horn blasts per day in my home. And I'd like to add a little bit of extra information. And first, I do want to really express my appreciation for everyone in the council who is working to have a quiet San Mateo County again. And I do notice that Caltrain is slightly lowering the decibels on some trains, and this is very much appreciated. What I want to add to this week is when I was sitting on 25th Avenue, waiting to turn left onto Delaware Street this weekend, the Caltrain drove overhead, and immediately when the tail of the train crossed over 25th Avenue, started blasting its horn all the way to the Hayward Park Station. This is 3/4 of a mile away from the Hayward Park Station. And according to the San Mateo City website, trains are required to sound their horns at designated distances up to 1/4 mile in advance of each at-grade crossing, depending on operating speed. So I would value any insights that the council can get into why the horns are being sounded, particular in this area, 3/4 of a mile before the Hayward Park at-grade crossing, which is the next at-grade crossing. Tonight, I was speaking with a neighbor. I went outside to take the garbage out, talked to a neighbor, and 2 trains passed us in short order. Both of them are blasting the horn so loud that we had to stop talking. And my neighbor said, "I don't ever remember this kind of horn noise before. What's happened?" And I explained that it's the new electric trains. And she just brought home a newborn baby, and her hands are tied with that. There are a lot of people like her out there who are suffering with these train horns. And I'm again going to focus my efforts on 25th Avenue to the Hayward Park train station, where there's a lot of high density housing and many people living along this area. And we are having horn sounds all the way from 25th to the train station. And also complaints about the train noise are escalating on Reddit. And I think that there are many people out there who simply don't know that they can come to City Council or how to address this. So thank you again very much to everybody on the City Council who's helping with this, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Dasha. Dasha, please unmute your mic.
Good evening, City Council. Sorry, I hope everyone can hear me. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, Daria Savage, or Dasha. I go by both. I just wanted to follow up on an email I sent about a week ago on the escalation of the train horn noise issue. It sounds like I'm not the only one, but actually a third one speaking on this issue on the Zoom call. I live in San Mateo in the Sunny Brae neighborhood, and I am just greatly affected by the day-to-day train horn noise escalation. Like, I am having trouble sleeping. I'm actually expecting a baby in January, and just someone else mentioning their neighbor having a kid and having to deal with this is like giving me anxiety just talking about it. I've been reaching out to City Council since 2022, getting updates on the establishment of the quiet zone through San Mateo, and attended a City Council meeting in July where we discussed the establishment of a quiet zone that was once again pushed back. I think train horn noise is really greatly felt by a lot of citizens in San Mateo. I mean, there's discussions on Nextdoor, Reddit, just talking to your neighbors. But what's bringing even more acuteness now is the electric trains, which it sounded like in the July meeting were supposed to decrease, or as Caltrain claimed, they were going to decrease the overall noise levels, but instead have amplified the decibels that they're using and running the trains at 2 times the frequency. So I just want to reiterate, like, it is important to focus on the short-term fix, but I just don't want us to lose sight of the long-term issue of establishing a long-term quiet zone. I don't understand why we keep pushing back the establishment of a quiet zone just because one street shows up and says, hey, we don't like that our parking spots will be taken away when this fix is going to benefit the entire city of San Mateo. I emailed Azalea about the establishment of a quiet zone in 2022, and he'd said that it was going to be established in 2023, and now we're looking at 2026. When I look at the Caltrain Quiet Zone page on their website, it does seem there were a few measures passed with budgets allocated to this, but it's interesting that San Mateo, despite having the most crossings and noise pollution out of the entire Caltrain corridor, is the only city without any projects listed to establish a quiet zone. So I just really urge City Council to expedite the establishment of quiet zone, and if there's anything that us citizens could do to reiterate just how important it is and how much noise affects us, please let us know. Like, I am willing to do anything at this point to sleep quietly. So I appreciate everything that's been done, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, that concludes public comment.
Thank you. I'd like to bring it back. And City Manager, before we close out, would you like to make a comment?
On train horn noise?
Yes.
Okay. So earlier today, Public Works staff and I met with the executive director and their staff of Caltrain to talk about train horn noise, the passing track and vibration complaints that we received at the last council meeting and from residents over the last couple of months, actually. And so at that meeting today, we were told that Caltrain has worked on, they had fixed the noise on a number of their trains, but when they got rebooted, the noise went up again and elevated again. The decibel level is supposed to be, the lowest legal level is 96. And so they have now rebooted, and there's a fix that the factory, I believe, where the trains are developed, I'm guessing, is in Salt Lake City. And so they do have a fix, and they're downloading that fix to all 15 trains, and they hope to have it, the decibel levels down to about 96 by the end of this month. So in the next, 9-10 days. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And then they'll have any new trains that come online, because they have 15 so far, any of the other new trains that come online will already have this fix as part of it. And the horns themselves are located at the lower half of the train as well to try to limit the amount of noise. In terms of, I heard one of the comments just about Hayward Park Station, or 3/4 of a mile in advance, just the distance and the horn noise. And so we've asked them about why is that happening and when a horn or when the bell, because there's a horn and there's a bell. So when exactly they utilize the horn and the bell. One area that they have to every time is a zone that's under construction, and that parking track is a zone that is officially under construction. And so every time it goes through that parking track that's between 10th and 14th on the Caltrain corridor, the horn will sound. And at the Hayward Park Station, although you don't have at grade like vehicle crossings, but you do have pedestrian crossing, so they might have to sound there too. And so they're going to get back to me with more information as to when the horn or the bell sounds in that area. And I also can follow up on the 3/4 mile or the 20th Avenue item that was brought to our attention this evening. So that's where we're at with the latest update with Caltrain.
Did you mind clarifying for public the section that's under consideration for the quiet zone? How far down the track that would be?
So the quiet zone is actually everything north of Hayward Park, so basically our entire city. So everything south of Hayward Park, all the or which used to be the outgrade crossings, there's been grade separation that has taken place. Previous councils made significant investments to make that happen. We still have 6 at-grade crossings, everything north of Hayward Park Station. Now, the train quiet noise initiative that the staff has been working on with the council over the last few years, we had a study session this past summer. We were looking at potential closures at Villa Terrace and Bellevue. That was the direction that council asked us to look into further, and I know public staff is working on that, and we'll bring something, hopefully, I believe, next year. I'm looking at our public works director, yes, so that we can discuss that further. But should that train quiet noise segment go into effect, that should help, but there still is areas when you get to train stations that horns will still go off, and also if there's any hazards on the rail line, the horns will go off, or any type of construction as well. But it'll limit the amount of horn noise that our residents are experiencing.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, sorry, one more question. All of the downtown crossings are at grade. So if we find out that Hayward Park needs to blast the horns because of people walking across, that's going to kill our ability to make downtown a quiet zone, even with the closure of those 2 streets, would be my guess. So hopefully we can find out more information about that.
Happy to provide more information as we do continue our studies.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hedges.
So we're doing quad gates downtown. That should quiet them down.
Yeah, but
That should help, yes, significantly reduce, but it does not completely eliminate train horn noise.
Okay, great. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, and I'm closing public comment. All right, so let us move on to new business. Item number 20, Climate Action Plan, Annual Progress Report. Andrea Chow, our sustainability analyst, has put a lot of work into this report, and we look forward to learning more. Thank you, Andrea.
All right, good evening. Good evening, Mayor Diaz-Nash, council members and members of the public. My name is Andrea Chow. I'm the sustainability analyst for the city of San Mateo. Tonight, I'm here to present a progress report on the implementation of the city's climate action plan. And this progress report is typically provided in the spring of this year, but was much delayed due to staffing. So staff's recommendation tonight is to receive an informational report, a progress report on the implementation of the city's climate action plan. And I'm going to start by providing some background on our climate action plan. The document was updated and adopted in April 2020, and it includes strategies and measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The climate action plan covers implementation measures in the following categories: building electrification, renewable energy, energy efficiency, municipal energy efficiency, clean transportation fuels, sustainable transportation, solid waste, water and wastewater, and off-road equipment. Also, a reminder that in 2023, the Climate Action Plan technical update was completed, and this technical update was hyper-focused on quantitative data points, including providing a 2019 greenhouse gas emissions inventory and updating targets and forecasts to align with state laws and regional guidance, all in alignment of the 2040 general plan. So the scope of work did not provide a comprehensive review or update of the Climate Action Plan, but very much focused on updating the greenhouse gas emission reduction measures and the quantitative data points associated with them. The updated Climate Action Plan was then adopted by City Council in March 2024 in conjunction with the general plan. And so the rest of my presentation will highlight specific efforts across these different categories of our Climate Action Plan. Starting with building electrification. In 2023, staff began work on the City of San Mateo Sustainable Building Strategy to electrify San Mateo's existing building stock that centers equity and promotes a collaborative pathway to electrification. The city released a request for proposals to select a technical consultant and selected Rincon for the project. Rincon completed an analysis framework incorporating equity and effectiveness, a building inventory and market segmentation, and building electrification cost analysis. And at the January 16th, 2024 City Council meeting, the project team presented this cost analysis as well as 5 building decarbonization policy options for feedback and direction. The City Council directed staff to explore all of these 5 policy options, but this project work was put on hold due to staffing. So just over the summer, these past months, staff began to re-engage Rincon on this work. In 2022, the city adopted REACH codes requiring all new construction to be all electric, beginning January 1 of 2023 through the end of this code cycle. The cities had to suspend the enforcement of this REACH code because it prohibited the installation of new gas infrastructure and due to a 2024 federal court decision. But at the recent October 7th City Council meeting, City Council directed staff to bring forward an energy performance REACH code ordinance for council consideration at a future meeting to replace the city's currently suspended REACH code. And very briefly, this energy performance REACH code approach is taken by a handful of cities in the Bay Area to replace all electric requirements. And it requires energy source and an energy design rating compliance margins that result in buildings with lower greenhouse gas emissions. And looking forward to the 2025 code cycle, staff will begin evaluation and engagement of more REACH codes next year. The city participated in PG&E's government program, which is administered by Wilden Energy Solutions, to replace gas water heaters with electric equipment. City staff in Wilden assessed 17 city facilities to identify existing equipment and then evaluate space and siting for new electric equipment. Beginning in February 2024, the project team installed 13 electric heat pump water heaters at 7 different city facilities. This included City Hall, the main library, Senior Center, Fire Station 21, Fire Station 23, Fire Station 26, and Fire Station 27. So the city was able to receive a total incentive of over $200,000, which covered the entire cost of the project, and this funding was provided by PG&E. In April 2023, the city finished installation of 14 level 2 charging ports at the Second and El Camino garage, and then in spring of 2024, the Kiku public parking garage opened with 27 level 2 charging ports. Both projects utilized funding from Peninsula Clean Energy to reduce project costs. So now at city-owned facilities, there are 2 DC fast charging ports and 68 level 2 charging ports among city-owned facilities. And then on the slide, you can see a plug share map, which shows how widely available electric vehicle charging is in San Mateo. There are 20 fast charging ports, 104 level 2 charging ports, and 44 Tesla charging ports. In terms of city fleet, the city purchased electric fleet units and applied for grant funding for electric replacements in the future. And the city is also working with Peninsula Clean Energy and PG&E to install charging infrastructure at municipal facilities, and we're specifically making some progress with fleet charging at City Hall. The city completed construction of a bicycle boulevard on Sunnybury Boulevard from Delaware Street to South Amplet Boulevard in winter of 2023. The project also included traffic calming elements and pedestrian improvements. And the city completed construction of Class 2 bike lanes on 5th Avenue between South B Street and Railroad Avenue in November of 2023. State regulations require that model year 2024 small off-road equipment to be electric, but Californians can continue to operate their current gas-powered equipment, and there's no ban on older models or used equipment purchased in the future. So statewide, we're in a bit of a transition period when it comes to gas leaf blower use. Looking forward, though, new equipment purchased will be electric. For the city's rebate program, the city has seen an increase in electric leaf blower rebates, likely due to increased marketing of the program. There were 14 applications in 2023 and 28 rebate applications issued in 2024 to date. For city operations, the parks team has developed a transition plan for replacing gas equipment with electric equipment. In 2023, an electrical upgrade was completed at the park yard for equipment charging. And additionally, a multi-hog compact sweeper was purchased, which helps reduce the need for blower use in parking lots and pathways. The city owns a total of 26 gas-powered blowers in parks operations, and there is a plan for a phased replacement. So community members took advantage of all types of rebates to reduce water and energy consumption in their home. Peninsula Clean Energy and Bayren provide rebates for heat pump water heaters, heat pump HVAC systems, and panel upgrades. Cal Water continues to provide their rebates for water efficiency equipment and turf replacement. And the city of San Mateo has rebates for our rain barrels and electric leaf blowers. And through these different programs, community members are able to save money while reducing their impact on the environment. I also wanted to mention the city's application to the Peninsula Clean Energy Member Agency Grant Program. This grant program is aimed at electrifying transportation, buildings, and operations. It is a grant that is a non-competitive funding source for jurisdictions in San Mateo County, and the city is eligible for $1.4 million. Through multi-department collaboration, staff identified a number of different projects for this funding source, and then narrowed it down to these 5 projects that meet the constraints of the grant program and also align with the City Council's priorities. These 5 projects include electric vehicle charging infrastructure for fleet, electrification improvements at the Marina Library, high voltage streetlight conversion, electric landscaping equipment for city operations, and pilot electric motorcycles for the police department. So this grant application is due at the end of the year. After Peninsula Clean Energy approves that at the staff level, the city staff will bring forward the Peninsula Clean Energy Member Agency Grant Program Agreement for City Council consideration in early 2025. And thank you. That concludes my presentation this evening.
Thank you very, very much. Shall we see if there's public comment?
Certainly, Madam Mayor, I have not received any requests to speak in chambers on this item. If you're participating via Zoom and wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand now. I will give you just a few moments to do so. So that's no request to speak on this item, Madam Mayor.
Okay, well then I will close public comment and bring it back to council. Who would like to start with questions or comments? Councilmember Lorraine.
Thank you, through the mayor. Thank you, Andrea, for your presentation. I heard you refer to our technical update, and maybe I missed if you happen to mention this, but just in case, could you speak a little to when we might, as a city, undergo the next climate action plan update?
Great, yeah. The 2023 technical update was focused on quantitative data, and the most recent greenhouse gas emissions inventory the city has is in 2019. Typically, the city updates the climate action plan every 5 years, so we would be due for a comprehensive update in 2025, and that work would begin next year.
Thank you. I did have a couple other questions as I was reviewing that, I don't mean to throw at you if I'll just try them because I'm curious and I hope they will be informative. You mentioned the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision and how it impacts our all-electric reach code. But I was just curious whether there was a decision made as to whether it would impact the heat pump reach code we had for existing buildings and single-family homes for like additions and remodels. And like, is requiring a heat pump the same thing as banning gas?
Yeah, the discussion of the 2022 REACH code replacement has focused on new construction, but that is correct. The city has had to pause enforcement on that REACH code that required the installation of a heat pump water heater during renovations because it requires electric equipment.
I see. Thank you. I was thinking a bit about, I appreciate the work the city has done to increase access to EV charging infrastructure in its parking lots. And I saw through the map that indeed it seems as though we have some private options available as well, or rather ones that are owned by others but are potentially available to the public. I was just curious if you thought it might be potentially useful to have information about what Peninsula Clean Energy can do for like multifamily homes that might be interested in, or like apartment complexes and multifamily dwellings that might be interested in including charging facilities.
Yeah, the data I provided on the slide was focused on chargers that are available widely to the public. Councilmember Lorraine, you're referring, I think, to Peninsula Clean Energy's EV Ready program that they provide to multifamily property owners. That's a program that's available. It provides technical assistance, and I'd have to confirm on whether or not they're providing funding as well. But I know they provide technical assistance to multifamily property owners who are looking to install EV infrastructure. Can you clarify what more information you were looking for on that topic?
I guess I noticed on the sustainability page, for example, that we have like electric appliance rebates from PCE for residential folks. And I guess in thinking about how how we might be able to increase our scope and share more potential offerings to increase our EV charging infra like citywide. Might it make sense to also include like the EV Ready program for multifamily homes and maybe companies who might be unaware of that the program exists?
Yes, I can certainly provide that information on the website.
Thank you. I was looking through the climate action plan a little bit in the section on efficiency. I think it was EE. Of course, I lost it. I think I've got it. Yeah. EE2, the non-residential energy efficiency retrofits. And I saw there was language that indicated that the city is already considering putting into effect some sort of benchmarking ordinance for buildings. And I was just curious if you had some sense of when we might start that process.
So for the sustainable building strategy effort, one of the policy options that is already included in our climate action plan is a benchmarking ordinance, but that's also a policy that was brought forward to council in January of this year for council feedback and direction. I think as part of the final strategy, there will be timelines scoped out for council to consider. We'll also have to put together, budget and resources for rolling out such a program.
Of course. But thank you for the reminder. That is helpful and exciting. Okay, I have a few comments, Mayor. Thank you. Of course, thank you for this information. It's an important reference for everybody to look at how far we've come, how much we've done, and how much more there is left to do. And there is quite a bit. But it is helpful to think of a number of steps we're going to be able to take in the not too distant future, and I look forward to taking it with council and staff, including last meeting's decision by council to pursue an alternative reach code for 2025. I appreciate that decision and think it will help. Partnerships with Peninsula Clean Energy, some of which were highlighted and some of which were even in our consent calendar today. The GovPV Beresford Solar Carport, our member agency grant that will be pursuing electric Parks and Rec equipment that the Deputy Mayor shouted out very well. Taking further steps with Electrify SM. Next year, those will be very important. And if it includes a benchmarking policy, at least in the outline, I'm excited by that because, slight segue, I happen to go to the League of California Cities conference with Councilmember Hedges and Deputy Mayor Newsom, and I took in a number of interesting sessions that had me thinking about other steps we might be able to take. One highlight was the city of Brisbane was recognized for their benchmarking ordinance. And so that was, it was nice to see a city in the county get recognized statewide for their work. And I hope we can follow in their footsteps or potentially come up with something even more award-worthy in the future. Another session I attended talked a little bit about the idea of assessing city assets for their potential to become electric, to increase efficiency, so on and so forth, which I think would be kind of, the everything else of what we have left to do from what Andrea presented that we've done to date. And I spoke briefly with the city manager, and it seemed to me that what has been discussed before about taking a look at all the facilities we have in our city, taking stock, getting a sense of their condition, and next steps we may want to take. This could be something that follows that. And I think it could pair well with the Electrify San Mateo program. Just the more data we can get on what we have left to do and what we can do as a city. The city of Milpitas and Oceanside were shown as case studies in a session Deputy Mayor Newsom and I attended as cities that took that stock and then decided to take some capital spending and finance upgrading all those systems and in a way that allowed us to not necessarily incur large cost, but effectively pay for it with the savings that we might get from the, things like investing in solar as we're doing at Beresford. So just kind of taking it farther is something I'm very excited to consider after we take some of these other steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Hedges.
Yes, I'll go forward. I'm not showing the excitement that Councilmember Lorraine has shown, but I'm very excited about this program as well. And I don't think, based on the revisions we're making, that the Berkeley decision is going to hurt us that badly. And in some ways, it may help acceptance. I moved into an all-electric home in 1979, and my wife's main complaint was not cooking with gas. And she and I had to learn to transition. My great-grandmother's skillet that we had used was too rough for the top of an electric stove, so we had to get rid of that. But we've coped with it, and we do fine, and as you can see from me, I haven't lost any weight. So cooking is going on quite well. So a couple things I'd like to bring up. My community, when the two office complexes around us went for updating and needing to go through the Planning Commission, we met with them and got the use of their electric chargers on off business after 5 o'clock at night until 8 o'clock in the morning and on the weekends. And I would like, if the city attorney's probably going to want to comment on this, and I would appreciate it actually if you do, is I don't see why we can't have an ordinance that any new or buildings or updating of our office buildings can't allow the community to use their electric chargers after the business day. It's working in our neighborhood. There's not been any problems with it, and it would give the communities right around those office buildings, who are often in short walking distance from them, the ability to charge their cars or their trucks.
If I may chime in, I don't have any direct comment on that right now, but it strikes me as rather analogous to new developments having shared parking agreements where after business hours, members of the public can use a parking garage that's ordinarily used during the day by its tenants. I'm not familiar with a specific instance where the public can use chargers that are intended for tenants, but it's perhaps worth some exploration.
So that tells me that it's probably doable then. And I think it would actually expand the amount of chargers we have in the city. And it's certainly expanded the amount of chargers around my neighborhood. So that would be the one suggestion I would make, that we get to work on an ordinance that would allow that to happen. And that's it for me, because I've agreed with everything that Councilmember Lorraine has said.
Thank you.
If I may follow up on my comment. So rather than...
I do have a question, though. Go ahead.
Rather than an ordinance, I think it may be more like a condition of approval if it's doable, because that's the way shared parking agreements work. But I think as to your overall point about somehow through some appropriate mechanism seeing if new developments are able to share their charges with members of the public.
Or updating buildings where they have to go through the Planning Commission.
Well, it depends on the nature of the update, I think. But for brand new buildings, for brand new developments, I think that's something we can see what other jurisdictions are doing in that regard.
Okay. And I do have one other question. Isn't it true you have to be a customer of Peninsula Clean Energy in order to get the rebates for?
That's true. You have to be a customer of Peninsula Clean Energy to receive the
Just wanted to make
rebates.
that clear. And you get a 5% discount on the energy, right?
The energy can be cheaper if you're getting energy through PC. I wanted to offer one comment on EV charging. It is actually our policy here at City Hall, at city facilities, that the EV charger here is available to residents outside of business hours. And from what I've observed on plugshare.com, there are some private businesses that already allow access to their EV chargers outside of the business hours.
It's good.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrea. Councilmember Lee.
I had a question, Andrea. If, stepping back, I'm just thinking about, just the recent devastation in Florida and the escalation of extreme weather events and its nexus to climate change and the work that we're doing at the policy level. And a lot of times there's sufficient political will, and the challenge is really resources. And so I was wondering, for our own sort of education and the public's education, where do you feel like the opportunities are to, in terms of identifying needs, resource needs to advance some of these, these policies faster, get some of these improvements going. I guess I think it would help us to have sort of overlay the conversation about the climate action plan with another conversation around where there's higher priority resource needs, because 2026 is going to come. We've been talking about revenue opportunities. We've been talking about a facilities plan, an assessment need. And I see hopefully these two ideas coming together, where we think about the need to build more resilient community facilities, and so I think it's prudent and wise to start some of these conversations in a more holistic way, and maybe this is not the today topic, but a future topic or a study session where we think about budget, sort of a budget analysis of implementation of our climate action plan. We are, we're making strides in many important ways, and there's a lot further to go. Where are the highest priority needs, and where maybe do they align with the facilities analysis? I think that framing that conversation now could be greatly beneficial, because 2026 is coming, right? And it took a devastating storm for us to pass a stormwater initiative, right? And that got us only 70% to the funding need. Our facilities are over a half a century old, right? By and large, most of our community centers are 50 plus years old. So I guess I just throw it out there. This is sort of a curveball question, and I don't expect you, Andrea, to have an answer top of mind. But I do think that thinking that these are the questions we need to be asking now, so that we're doing the analysis far enough in advance to start framing up what will come in 2026 and what revenue measure will be well-informed and holistic enough to bring together these needs of climate resiliency and giving the community the kind of high quality facilities that we desperately need after half a century. So those are my comments, but if you have anything to add to that, that kind of what I've said, I'm very curious to hear.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I think you addressed a couple of things that staff are thinking about. You mentioned, assessing our assets and making our facilities resilient for the future. Maybe you didn't mention it by name, but what your comment made me think of, our efforts on identifying grants and making sure we're finding resources for high priorities. And then thirdly, just a holistic response to our climate resilience in the future. So I'm definitely mindful of all of the comments you made, and we'll have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture as you're commenting.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Couple questions and comments. First off, thank you for the presentation. Everything you said is very exciting, and having come from Cal Cities for the past week, literally more than half the sessions we were about these type of topics: electrification of city, electrification of fleet, and electrification of really the grid. So, a couple questions. I saw the number of vehicles in the fleet is currently 233. So, doing not great math, we're only at about 7% of our fleet is currently either electric or natural gas, and we as a city have a blue sky initiative of trying to get there within 5 years. How confident are you that that's achievable? And what are we doing as far as in terms of figuring out, what's the end of life for the rest of the fleet? Meaning, like, I look and see, okay, we've got 4 Chevy Bolt passenger cars. How many non-electric? Maybe kind of going through the same sort of metric that you've done and saying, well, the equivalent of that is the, non-electric equivalent is this, and how many, so we can kind of percentage out what we're doing and how we're progressing. And this is not meant as a criticism in the least. It's just what I learned a lot of this past week is that we really have to make a plan for ourselves to actually hit our goals, because if we don't, 7% over the last 2.5 years is not the trajectory to get us to 100% natural gas and electric fleet in the next 5 years. So does that make sense? And then the question being, how confident are you that we can get on track?
To get into the specifics of vehicle procurement and replacement, I would need to ask our fleet manager to provide more details. He did provide the details that are provided in this report, but to elaborate further on that, I'd have to follow up with him.
Sure.
And with the council on that. But yes, I think you're observing that we have a very large goal that was set for us in 2030. And I do want to focus on something that I have been a big part of, which is the infrastructure side of things, which is necessary to unlock that step of having more electric vehicles in our fleet. And so the 3 sites we're focused on are City Hall, the Courtyard, which has the majority of vehicles, both park and public work vehicles, and the police department. So these are all high priorities. I mentioned that the Peninsula Clean Energy Member Agency grant funding will be a large portion of that member agency grant is going to be dedicated to that infrastructure side of things, hopefully enabling future vehicle replacement with electric options. The city did work with Peninsula Clean Energy to do a full assessment of our fleet. All of them, in terms of public works vehicles, parks vehicles, and even police vehicles. So there's been analysis done, but I think I'll let our fleet manager follow up to speak to the details of the challenges with the transition and procurement.
Great. Okay, thank you. That's just something we can bring back. Would be great. Also, looking at the facilities, and this is not in our 5-year plan, but definitely in the 10-year plan for the future. Even though our firehouses are under the JPA and run by the JPA, the facilities of our firehouses in the city of San Mateo are our facilities. And I heard from people this past week about one of the fire departments down in Southern California getting their first electric fire truck. And, it costs almost twice as much as a non-electric fire truck. So we're not there yet, but the point being, I want to make sure that we're looking at our firehouse or fire facilities with the plan and the eye to, if we needed to, in 10 years from now, want to have electric fire trucks, what are we going to have to do to be able to get there? Because again, it's all planning. Like if we don't start looking at things 5 and 10 years down the road now, we're not going to be able to achieve it, and then our goals will be missed. Okay. A comment when we were talking to Public Works about a month or so ago was that when they have, for example, a CNG fleet truck, and the fueling of the fleet has been challenging because a lot of schools have moved to also using CNG buses, and with that change, the time it takes for us to go and fuel the vehicle can sometimes be half a shift for 1 or 2 people per week. I'm wondering if we can look at that and diagnose, is there a solution? I don't know if it's possible to have CNG fuel in a tank on our courtyard, but that's a question I guess I think we should think about. And then the other thing is or should we be looking at stepping away from CNG and going more electric? And so again, these are just questions that I don't expect you to answer, but I want to plant the seeds. As far as charging, and I don't know this, so this is why I'm asking. Of the charging that we're doing for our current electric fleet, do we charge anything on 220 chargers, or is everything 110 solely?
No, our charging solution is mostly level 2s, at least for City Hall. I think other types of charging solutions will be evaluated based on the site. So I imagine the courtyard and even the police department might have different charging solutions.
Right. Okay, that's why I'm asking. One of the things I heard this past week is the idea that we make sure that, for example, the police department, for example, can fast charge a vehicle as opposed to, the vehicles that are going out and doing inspections, they can slow charge overnight. And as long as we're getting them charged overnight, we've got 10, 12 hours of downtime, that works. But on other vehicles like emergency response vehicles, we clearly need to be able to charge in 2 or 3 hours, not, we're not gonna have that downtime. So that was the question.
Exactly.
And then, sorry, lots of questions. Leaf blowers, you said that we currently have 26 gas-powered leaf blowers. And again, not asking you to tell me now, but would like to kind of course plan out for when we plan to achieve having 0 gas leaf blowers. And
I did have a response for that piece because I mentioned the Peninsula Clean Energy Member Agency grant, and again, some portion of that funding will be allocated to that transition of city operations and landscaping equipment.
that's fantastic. And I think as a Blue Sky initiative, we've been talking about maybe for next year, looking at helping the public make that change as well. And we've talked about it in the past, but I think we might reevaluate that. Emergency generation and fuel grid, or energy grid. So, currently, for example, City Hall and I think the police station both run on gas generators.
That's
I'd like to make sure that as we build our infrastructure, we're moving to batteries and that we can fully be, battery operated as opposed to generators. And we also heard a lot about funding, and there's funding not just, for example, from Peninsula Clean Energy, but there's funding at the state level and the federal level that I'm not sure. I believe that you're doing your best, but I want to make sure that if there's other opportunities that we're opening all the resources and going after everything. So a couple of groups that we went to mentioned that.
The city manager might have a comment about that.
I just want to weigh in on emergency generators, specifically our police department, our fire department. At this time and until the technology really gets there, we're going to continue with our gas generators. The battery backups for these, they cost millions of dollars if you're going to run a facility, and at this time it's not cost prohibitive. And we also have to make sure that we do not go down. We are the last line for our community. So we'll look at it, over time, but at this point in time, we'll still keep our fossil fuel generators.
When we look at everything, it's got to be factored into.
Yes.
It's at some point that's going to be plug-in ready to be able to have a battery wall, and at some point the value the costs will level out so that it won't be that much more cost prohibitive. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, we'll be tracking it.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you for a great presentation. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, I think most of my colleagues have asked everything, and Andrea, thank you not only for the presentation, but for what you do every day in this regard. This is an ongoing effort, as we've all talked about, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. So thank you for keeping us focused. And I would just love to underline the importance of infrastructure, right? This is, in terms of the fleet over at the police station, even if we had more cars, we don't have the charging capability for them. I mean, you know this more than anybody else, but please let us not forget to keep the infrastructure top of mind for anything you're wanting to do. That's got to be right up there. And then, while infrastructure has to be number one, communication, education has to be very important as well. And I know you've put more effort into publicizing the leaf blower incentive programs, but what ideas are you thinking about? Or if not, I strongly encourage you to be thinking of big ideas, because going from 14 to 28, was it? That's 100%, that's great, but it's still only 28. And we need to get it a lot higher. So I would encourage you to be very assertive, aggressive, proactive, creative in coming up with ideas and bringing them to us, bringing them to the city manager, and how can we help? Because I know we hear from residents and businesses all the time about what's going on with leaf blowers. And thank you very much to you and the city manager for bringing us an update on the efforts, even more detail than what's in your report tonight. But I would strongly encourage you to really come back with something where we can make a lot of noise and get a lot of people, whether they're businesses or residents, to buy electric leaf blowers. I think we owe that to the community. So that's my only comment here, beside to say, Councilmember Hedges has one more comment for you.
I just wanted to make it clear to everybody that electrification is a great idea, but not at the pumps on Marina Lagoon. They're diesel and they need to stay diesel because it takes a lot of power to move all of the water that comes down. And what happens if we have an interruption of the grid during a heavy rain? So there's been some discussion about going electric there, but it's just not a good idea for the safety of flooding, number one. And number two, I've actually brought this up with the using the electric blowers with commercial. And I think a couple of their problems is, first of all, they're heavier for their staff. But secondly, the amount of time that they will have for blowing for the commercial needs to be increased. It needs, because they have to carry several replacement batteries with them for the day. And so it's a stretch for the commercial people. But as the technology increases, I think it's going to be very doable for them. But right now, there is a problem for them.
Great. Thank you. Have we finished our comments and questions? Then thank you very much, Andrea. And please let us know how we can continue to support you. Good evening. So with that, let's go on to reports and announcements. Who would like to start us off? We have 3 council members who were down in Long Beach, and here comes Councilmember Lorraine.
Sure, thank you. I'll just, I did get to briefly mention the trip a little. It was educational. I'm glad I went, and I'll just note that it won't be my last time because I appreciate the opportunity the league gives council members and city officials to learn what they can to be the best they can be and interact with folks from other cities in the state, learn best practices and bring them home. And in the spirit of that, I applied to be part of the Peninsula Division's Executive Board, and I was elected by mayors. So I appreciate that. I will use this opportunity to engage more with my colleagues in San Mateo County and Santa Clara County. And anything I learn through the process of trying to get folks to come out to various events and participate more in the league, I will try to share either through reports and announcements or otherwise, but looking forward to it.
Thank you very much and congratulations. Councilmember Hedges.
Well, first of all, I think of the 2 conferences I've attended, I thought this was the best. It was well organized. I attended several meetings on infrastructure, and I think there's a big concern among people who attended the meetings that I attended over how we're going to fund the roads in the future. As most of you know, and was brought up in the meetings, that the Federal Trust Fund went bankrupt in 2008. That when I worked for Congressman Lantos and the bridge fell in Minnesota and killed a number of people, that he tried to get a nickel a gallon in increased funding for federal roads just to work on the bridges, sunset at 5 years, and he couldn't get it out of committee. So there's not going to be any help in the near future coming from the federal government. So one of the big concerns is, what do we do as the electric fleet continues to expand? They're heavier by quite a bit than a gas-powered car, which means over years they do more damage to the roads, yet they're paying $118 a year in road costs. So we really need to get a handle on that. And there are technical things that can be done. It's just the political will to do it. And I think that's lacking right now. So that's my report, but it was very enjoyable. A lot of camaraderie between people that had attended. I thought people got along well. And I think, if nothing else, it's a great exercise to get all the city council members together from different areas.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee?
First question is, our city manager confirmed that the loan to Mi Second Casa was the largest that we've ever granted in our history of setting up the fund. And I was wondering, are we going to be celebrating or promoting that story and telegraphing it to the community in some way? It would be so wonderful, now that we're official, it would be so wonderful to, to highlight that good news story.
Absolutely.
Great. Secondly, I think we all received an email and also heard from public comment today the concern about the potential loss of insurance for homes that may have a historic designation imposed on them or opted into if they choose to. And I wanted to express my concern about that, and also, restate my concern about spending potentially $500,000 on a consultant to pursue a local policy that could have a ripple effect of loss of insurance eligibility. And I would ask that that the city do some exploration on and validate that potential impact before this policy is pursued.
So if you're if you're trying to give staff direction, that would take time for staff to do. As you heard, if you're going to be surveying a whole bunch of insurance providers, I would say if we're going to move forward with the historical resources program, at that time we can also look into that as just another item as we do that work. But in advance of that, I'd want to see at least 3 nodding heads at a minimum to give staff that direction.
So I'm asking if there is a concern about the impacts of insurance eligibility in pursuing a local policy of creating a historic designation pathway that could make it potentially easier to get historic designation. I think it would be wise for us to understand from a market perspective what the risks are to ensure that our homeowners and residents can maintain their insurance. So this is, in my view, a baseline level of due diligence.
I guess I would just suggest that what the city manager has suggested makes sense to me, to wrap it into the overall program. That certainly we should look into it, but have it be part of that overall program.
And also, if it's a bigger detriment with a local policy than it is with the federal or state. I think they have to be compared.
What I'm saying, though, is that if we are going to look into it, that is already a commitment of $500,000. Is it worth the money when we have a foreseeable budget deficit of over $10 million to commit $500,000 to pursuing a policy when in fact, if we found out up front if there are risks to insurance, we could save $500,000.
So understanding this has not been an agendized topic for this evening, I just want to know, would you like staff at this time, just looking at nodding heads, to look in this further, or wait until, so I see 2 shaking heads now.
So I had a question, Alex, because you mentioned that it could be potentially baked into...
Wrapped in.
Yeah. Would that be only after council decides to move ahead with the initial investment?
That's when we would do it. That's correct. It would be part of that process to look at it.
We're spending $500,000 to potentially find out that there are grave impacts to insurance eligibility, instead of what I'm proposing, which is let's make sure that there's an analysis done, or at least a baseline survey done to understand what the insurance implications are before committing $500,000. Reminding ourselves that we have an over $10 million budget deficit.
So I have one affirmed wanting to move forward with a current survey. I have two.
Well, I guess I would want it to be baked in, but I also would like, I'm not at a point where I think we should be committing to spending $500,000 until that's not the only thing we need to have more detail about. I think we need to kind of, as we start the process, have them present to us, you know.
So what council directed at the time, this was back in June, was to go ahead and do an RFP and bring back the contract basically before we take off on doing a historical resources program. That's what we're directed to bring forward.
What I'm asking is, wouldn't the RFP, I mean, wouldn't we be finding that out as part of the RFP process?
No.
Oh.
Okay, then yes, I'd support finding out.
So what I'm concerned about is I don't want to stop the process because people have been asking for it since the 80s until I know that there'll be the same amount of great problem for homeowners if people go through the state and federal. It has to, you know, if there's no balance where it would save that if through our own system. I thought our system would be more for what affects the local people, not something that's a state or federal program.
So right now, what the question is just, would you like staff to survey insurance companies on the question of whether or not they insure houses in
that works for
historical
me.
districts?
I'd like you to do that, yes.
In advance of us embarking on the historical resource program. So I'm getting 1, 2, 3.
So we need information.
Got it.
I don't want to make sure we're not slowing down. We should continue moving forward with the RFP process.
That's what we're doing.
But
Yeah,
doing
it's just
this.
on top of that. You're asking staff, we're going to pull staff resources, so I'll let you know what might slip for us to focus on this then.
Have you got a?
And I can give you a write-up, and I can give you an council write-up just what it impacts basically if we're going to take on this.
So do you have a back of the envelope idea about how much staff time that
I
would
was
take?
just given this question right now. So
I'm asking you to guess.
I can't guess.
Okay.
No.
I guess this is.
I have 3 saying to go look at this on a parallel path. Councilmember Lorraine, do you want to, or you just, you don't have to, I got it.
Sure.
Okay, got it. We'll take a look at it on a parallel path with RFP.
I think city attorney has
Wait,
something
what?
to say.
Oh, you're okay.
We're going to keep moving forward with our RFP process.
Right, we're not.
And
We're not withdrawing the RFP. We're not pausing the RFP. We're getting information ahead of a decision to vote on a contract. I agree. We need information. Exactly.
The other caveat would be if we're looking into insurance, I don't know, but when we look at like the Hillsdale Hills and the San Mateo Park, do we have any people that are at risk of losing fire insurance because of?
That's going into a whole nother topic.
Well, I know, but it's a parallel topic though. I mean, if you're talking about things that qualify for being disqualified from insurance, so I guess the question would just be, do we know of any cases that's been brought forward?
Through the mayor.
City attorney, do you have something to say?
If I can chime in here. So I want to emphasize one thing the city manager said, which this is not on the agenda.
Right, okay.
Number one. And so I think the discussion should come to a close on this topic.
Darn.
I think
Works for me. Okay.
council has provided informal direction on exploring, just understanding more about this issue. But the council is not revisiting the prior direction to move forward with historic resource policy and spending the money.
Correct.
That decision has already been made and it's not on the agenda. This is just work in advance of that effort that the council has asked staff to commit to.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, so I'm going to jump into my comments. Had a great experience this past week at Cal Cities. Attended several several sessions primarily around infrastructure, having cities be ready for electric future, having policies in place to make sure that we're ready for effective crisis management during emergencies and disasters, learning about funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, funding for the community, and learning a lot about the kind of the gap that the state is finding with state transportation funding, in that close to like 20-something% of the state is now moved to electric, and we're seeing a large drop off in gas tax revenue. So they're looking for ways to backfill that. So that was some of the things I talked about, but it was primarily infrastructure and future infrastructure, which was very interesting. I was also going to throw out a congratulations, but Adam did mention congratulations to Adam Lorraine for becoming our San Mateo County rep for the Peninsula Division of Cal Cities. There were also several cities that were awarded Helen Putnam Award winners, and I would like us to, as a group, look at that process, because I think that we do a lot of things that make qualified. I mean, I believe that we already are an award-winning city, so it would be great if we could find ways to get that kind of recognition. So that was all that, and then moving on to upcoming events. I hope I'm not stealing the mayor's thunder, but there is Booze on B, and that's BOOS on B Street, Saturday the 26th, which is basically the ability to take your kids trick-or-treating with our downtown merchants from 3 to 5 p.m. It's a lot of fun, and I'm leaving a lot out on details, but please look it up on either the DSMA or the city website. And also want to throw out a pitch for the Peninsula Humane Society. They have their holiday gala this year earlier than normal. It's November 2nd, which is Saturday, and I invite and encourage people to attend. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Please steal away. Everybody who can promote Booze on B Street should. So come in costume on Saturday. I would like to call out the Sturge Presbyterian Church. I was fortunate enough to be invited there yesterday, and they celebrated their 100th anniversary. And this was the first Japanese Christian congregation in San Mateo, and it's been a very important part of our community. It was a tremendous turnout. And what I also found really important was, from their beginning, they've had a very close partnership with the Congregational Church, and members from that church were at the Sturge Presbyterian Church's celebration, really talking about how they worked together in their early history, how the Congregational Church members helped to preserve the homes and resources of the Japanese community when they were forced to internment camps during the Second World War, and all the partnership that goes on today. So that was just a very exciting thing to be part of. I also connected them with the San Mateo Library, who's doing a history project, and Sturge has a huge wealth of information about the Japanese American community in San Mateo that I think will be very, very helpful to the library and to the community. Wanted to call out tomorrow, a number of us are going on partner visitations that the San Mateo Foster City School Board is sponsoring, and we're visiting various elementary schools around the city, and I think this is a great way for council members to learn about what's going on in the schools, and I'd love to find ways to specifically invite school district members to get more involved with what the city council is doing. Then on Thursday, Deputy Mayor Newsom and I are participating in the San Mateo Foster City School District Educator Housing Task Force. We've all talked about how critical the housing crisis is. It certainly is a high priority for our school system, and we'll be working together with the school leaders on recommendations for how to deal with more housing for our educators, which is a high priority. And then the one other thing is, on the 30th of December, it's a week out plus, but we're having our boards and commissions dinner celebrating the 130th anniversary of San Mateo. So it'll be a lovely look back at our history as well as a look forward to our future. And I really encourage everyone on a board and a commission to come. This is a wonderful, wonderful evening to meet your colleagues and really celebrate San Mateo. And I want to thank our city clerk and his team for what I know will be a fantastic evening. So any other comments? Councilmember Hedges.
It's remiss
One
in
more.
not inviting you personally. Who likes ice cream?
All of
So
us.
my wife and I will be dishing out ice cream to all those hungry people on Halloween at the clubhouse at Harbortown. If you come off of Mariners Island to Harbortown, it's the first building on the left. We'd love to see you. You might have to wait in line a little bit because there's a lot of invitations out there, but you'll all get ice cream.
Okay, as long as you don't eat it all. Okay? All right. Well, then, with that, I am going to call the